Man, this gun has some scratches on it. It's pretty much useless now. Damn it. What's going on, guys? This is Burz. I want to talk to you today about BERZFACTS. BERZFACTS about guns. That's what I want to talk to you today about. Now, I've been doing this for a little over a year now. I take statistics from the FBI, Census Bureau, Bureau of Justice Statistics, the Australian government, states, CDC, all these different places where you can get statistics. And what I do is I go out and look up what's being talked about on maybe that week. So some weeks people are talking about gun control this way and gun control that way, and suicides and death and gun violence and ending gun violence and all this stuff. And you know, a lot of them do really believe in trying to make the world a better place, and I can't knock them for that. But what I can knock some of them for is using the absolute incorrect data, whether they are intentionally or not intentionally doing it. One of the places recently that has taken something and just really misconstrued it is the Americans for Responsible Solutions, or Americans for Responsible Gun Solutions, or whatever it is, by Gabby Giffords and her husband Mark Kelly. They put out a report about a month ago, and what it basically said was, online gun sales, you do not have a background check for. Being a gun owner and someone who has bought a gun online and had it shipped to my local gun store and had a background check, I completely don't understand this notion. To be very straightforward, are there guns that are sold online that don't go through background checks because someone is doing something illegal? That's very possible, and I'm sure it happens. A large number of them are purchased, they're sent to a gun dealer, an FFL, and the person gets a background check, and that's the large majority of guns that are sold online. Bud's Gun Shop, you have gunbroker.com, Guns America, America Guns, tons of different places where you can purchase a firearm. We all know that's heresy. It's not a fact that all online gun sales don't go through a background check, but they put this report out. In the report, it clearly showed that online gun purchases, you have no background check whatsoever. So I had to call them on it. And what I did was I took the report, I highlighted that area where it said that, and then I just responded back to them with some other screenshots on gunbroker.com, I think Guns America, and I just took screenshots and showed the areas in those listings that said this will be shipped to your FFL. I only ship to gun stores or federal, FFLs. So basically what they're saying is the person selling it is saying, I can sell you this, you can pay me, but I'm not sending it directly to you because the law says it's going to your FFL gun shop and you're going to get your background check. Proceeded to, show the facts and stuff. And ironically, Never Enough Ammo made a video which used that graphic, and he didn't even know I made that graphic because it went around social media and he saw it and he was like, oh, that's interesting. And he made a video about it where he was ranting and raving about, the lies that were in that report. There's a few things to get from that. Number one, you never know what's being said unless you read or look at the stuff that's coming out, against your cause. The one thing I know is if you're gonna go and debate something, or you're gonna go fight something, you need to know your opposition. You have to know what they're gonna debate about. So by people not going and looking at such things, they're not seeing what they're not seeing. And what they're missing is some really important stuff and misinformation. And I try to go through those reports as much as I can and burp to kind of see exactly what we're debating on the other side. If you go and talk to someone who wants gun control, they don't want assault weapons on the street or even in anyone's hands. If you don't have that information, you can't have a very good debate because there's misinformation. One of the other places I recently saw some misinformation was on a gun advocates debating gun control advocates. It was like a little tabletop talk of sorts by Fusion. Now I came across this, I was watching it, Australia came up. And Australia, a lot of people will reference Australia as, hey, they reduced their gun deaths. Can't argue that. Their gun deaths have lowered. But the thing that hasn't changed at all is their overall homicide rate hasn't changed. Their homicide rate back in 1996 when it was introduced was 1.7 per 100,000 people. Today, it's 1.7 per 100,000 people as of 2015. So their overall homicide rate hasn't changed. Just the tools that the criminals are using to kill people have changed. So inside of this debate that they were having, Australia came up. I believe the gun control advocate side brought up Australia, and the people who were debating, talking about gun owners and advocates, they really didn't challenge it at all.
In Australia in 1996, there was a mass shooting, and they changed the laws, and it did have a significant dent since then in reducing the casualties. So
if that's the kind of sacrifice we have to make, I mean, that's a huge sacrifice. We're talking about completely changing America.
Should the Second Amendment be opened up?
I would have loved to have been there and say, are you looking to reduce gun deaths, or are you actually looking to reduce death, people being killed? Because if the same number of people are dying every year, who cares if it's by a gun or if it's by a knife or by a blunt force object? It doesn't matter. The same number of people are dying every year by criminals. So you can't really call that successful if that number doesn't change. And that's the one thing I didn't see debated in there. But neither here nor there, I'll go and I will respond to all this when I see these things on social media. I've done it multiple times, more than multiple times, trying to get the right information out there. And the one thing I use when I post these facts, the majority of the time, is hashtag BERZFACTS. So if you go on Facebook, if you go on Instagram, if you go on Twitter, what you'll see is if you just search hashtag BERZFACTS, you'll see a ton of these different infographics or discussions in relation to the facts I've come up with from all the research I've done. And a lot of people will say that people on the gun control side will talk about, they talk from emotions, but you can counter that with statistics. You know, I actually had recently somebody who is a gun control advocate respond to one of my responses on one of these posts, in which I think it was Gun Violence Archives, or someone posted, said there were 150 people injured or killed by guns today. And I responded and said the other 99.9996% of America was not affected by gun violence today. And they responded and they said something like, hey, it really puts perspective on things, that the large majority of America wasn't affected by gun violence today. So the one thing you have to learn is when you go into debates, you can't just shut the other side down. There are people that have died from others who have used guns, and you have to be sympathetic to that. And you also have to understand that there are people out there that don't like guns. They're afraid of guns, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. There's people who like guns. There's people that don't like guns, and just because you don't like a gun doesn't mean you're wrong. But at the same time, if you do like guns, or you do want to defend yourself with a gun, it doesn't make you wrong either. Now, a lot of people will say Donald Trump was elected president. I mean, some people won't, but he was elected president, and you're gonna say, hey, you know what? We have a Republican controlled everything. You know, we can just kind of like chill out on this whole, gun control, gun violence thing. We're gonna be great. He's gonna do all this great stuff for us, and yada, yada, yada. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. I'm really impressed with the fact that there's actually a national discussion, and a very loud discussion, about concealed carry reciprocity across the nation, from state to state. So if you have one in Pennsylvania, no matter what other state you go to, it's gonna act like a driver's license. I do really think that that's a very good thing for concealed carry permit holders like myself. The one thing that you have to understand is, just because that certain people are holding certain offices, number one, it's only for a certain period of time. And number two, you shouldn't give up. You shouldn't just give up and be like, it doesn't matter right now, because then you're gonna be behind the ball when possibly something else happens. So I say full steam ahead. Go out there and find these graphics, these BERZFACTS, hashtag BERZFACTS on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Share them out from time to time. When you see there's a discussion, think before you talk about it to the person, and think about what their angle is. Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew in my mouth. The other thing to know is there's actually things that you can agree on with people who are gun control advocates. Sandy Hook Promise posted something that I actually agreed with the other day. I say the other day, but maybe about a few weeks ago, and they posted their promise, and I cut out the promise, and I posted it and said, no matter who you are, I'm sure everyone agrees with the fact of your promise. A lot of people will take the promise and they think they're going to reduce guns in America. They're going to get rid of AR-15s and all this stuff. But as a base message, what that Sandy Hook Promise message is, I agree with. And just because I have a different view of how to get to that promise doesn't mean I'm wrong compared to everyone else. Being a gun owner, I see a different path to that than what maybe they do. But just because you don't go and sign some promise doesn't mean you don't believe it. I guarantee easily over 90% of America agrees with the Sandy Hook Promise, no matter how diehard of a gun owner you are, or how diehard of a gun control advocate you are. I get spurred by discussion, so people like the Gun Violence Archive or States United, maybe Sandy Hook Promise, particularly Americans for Responsible Solutions, they seem to put out some stuff that's not always truthful. That's really what spurs me. So I'll see something and I'll think to myself, you know what, is that right or is that wrong? I'll go look into it. I'll find out that either it's right or wrong, and if it's wrong, I'll make an infographic and challenge that. And the large majority of people haven't blocked me. The only group that has blocked me is Moms Demand Action, and their president or CEO or whoever the hell runs their thing. I think they're really the only place that's blocked me. And that's really interesting, and I can appreciate that I have a very different view and I challenge a lot of different things. And a lot of these groups, you know, because I do it in a respectful manner, they don't block you. If you go on there and you're a dick, you're gonna get blocked. As long as you're putting forward, you know, some respect, you can have some really good discussions and create some really unique bonds with people that maybe don't see life the way you do as a gun owner, and maybe you don't see life the way they do as someone who doesn't like guns. So, I don't know. Check out BERZFACTS. Share them if you... What am I pointing at? If you see the need for it, you can download them and post them wherever you want and do whatever you want with them. Hopefully they're helpful. If you guys have some facts and stuff like that, go ahead and put it in the comments. Maybe there's some stuff you've seen recently that's incorrect and you would like to, you know, challenge it, or you found some facts that are really radical and cool and, you know, gnarly and from the 90s. What other terms do you want here? So I'll see you out there on social media. Until next time, later. For instance, I try to reach, what am I, a senator? I try to reach across the aisle. Stupid.